And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this, third segment, excuse me for that horrible English right there, I will be going ahead and talking about the United States women's basketball lineup and their matchup against Germany, because that recently happened, and with the Olympics rolling around, it's kind of important to talk about these games and the women's basketball and sort of just what's to expect from women's basketball. Now, this is probably going to be one of the only female USA basketball games that I talk about, mainly because how everyone expects the men's basketball team to win. Well, you should expect the women's basketball team to win, as well as blow out every single team they play against. You shouldn't just expect them to win. You should expect them to blow out. You should expect them to dominate in every single game that they play. Because that's just how Team USA women's basketball is. They're just so much more advanced as a program than every other country. And it's really, really difficult for USA women's basketball to lose in any sort of matchup against any sort of team, any sort of national team in the Olympics. Now, the women's basketball program has won 11 medals, 9 gold medals, 1 silver medal, and 1 bronze medal. They have won 7 straight gold medals since 1996. And the last time that they won anything other than gold was in 1992. They are a unit of a basketball organization. They barely ever lose. In fact, they have by far the most dominant. They're by far the most dominant Olympic team ever. That is the argument that you have for the women's basketball team. They have a 70-3 record in Olympic Games. 70-3. That is unheard of. And again, those 7 consecutive titles, that is a record. These women are so good and so far ahead of the curve that it's not really expected that they lose, right? The expectations that everyone has for men's basketball should be the expectations that everyone has for women's basketball tenfold. I mean, the United States, they outscored Germany in the first quarter 22-9, and then in the fourth quarter 20-7. Excuse me. And by far, they're just so ahead of everyone else and their game that it's really no contest. And it doesn't matter, who they have on the team. And it really doesn't matter how they play. They could play arguably the worst game of their lives and they'll still end up winning. That's how bad it is. These women are just so far ahead, and they just have much better records, they have much better accolades, they have much better stats, and this is sort of why I said on the previous podcast that no one should be worried about Team USA, or the fact, or at least the women's side of Team USA, or the fact that they ended up losing to the WNBA All-Stars, right? Because the WNBA All-Stars is probably, at least now, better competition than the rest of the Olympic athletes that are going to be participating in Paris. It should also be noted that, there are other countries that aren't, while the countries that are participating in the men's basketball team are a certain country, it's not necessarily it's not always going to be the same, for the women's basketball side. Excuse me. However, more often than not, the team is going to be like, the nation is most like the nation that qualified is most likely going to be the same, just due to the fact that they have, a very competent men's team. Now, the women's basketball team, they only play 3 guaranteed games, at least, according to this schedule that I'm looking at right now. They start on July 29th at 3 p.m. Their first game is going to be against Japan, and then they play against Belgium in August, and then they play against Germany again in August the 4th. So it seems like, their group the group that they've been put in is significantly different than the group that the men's United States has been put in, because the men's United States team, I believe they were grouped with Serbia, as well as being grouped with the South Sudan team, and as well as being grouped with the Puerto Rican team. I believe those were the groupings for the United States men's team. So the women's team, while the grouping is rather different, I don't think the results of any of these games are going to be different, like, at all. These players, they're just going to have a field day with the rest of the women in this league. And it's really like, I'm not really going to talk about the women's basketball that much, because it's literally their gold medal to lose. If they lose in any sort of knockout round in these Olympics, it would be the biggest upset in their entire program's history, without a doubt. And honestly, if they were to lose, like, the people and the internet, they would 100% immediately go on Twitter, and they would all be like, you should have put Caitlin Clark on Team USA. That would be, like, if they lose, that would be the ultimate, like, I don't even know. That would be the ultimate power move that Caitlin would have, because not only would the United States feel the repercussion of not adding Caitlin Clark to the roster, but then when Caitlin Clark, continues her WNBA career in the next 4 years, she's most likely going to be selected for the Olympics. So she'll also be seen as this, I guess you could say, savior for the Olympics and for the women's side of basketball, if the women even lose in the Olympics. Because again, that's a really big if. They rarely lose. But if they do, Caitlin might be seen as the savior, similar to how LeBron was, and Steph Curry, and I mean, not really Kevin Durant, but mainly Bron and Steph Curry. They're seen as, saviors of Team USA, and part of the reason why this team is called the Avengers. So just a little bit of food for thought right there. So with that out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and go into the 4th segment after this break, where I grade every single draft pick in the first round of the NBA draft. You guys might remember that I did this a few days ago, but now I actually have grades for every single player in the first round, as well as stats for every single player in the first round. So I might change around my grades a little bit from the previous segment, and I also only did 1 through 14 in the previous segment. So I might skim through 1 and 14, and I'll just go ahead and, talk about the rest of the players in the draft in the 4th segment. So be sure to stay tuned for that right after this short break. I'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.